commercial-free Catholic Charismatic channel.
He's strengthening the faith of so many people.
To promote the gift of church teaching. Dedicated for the new evangelization.
God's blessings on your work. May God bless and prosper you.
Shalom World, God's own channel.
Glory to Jesus Christ. I'm Father Thomas Loya. Welcome again to our series, Going Back to School. Sacramental, Catholic, human, liturgical worldview. That's how we're seeing all of life. And in particular, we're seeing one of the most important things in life, and that is marriage, husband, wife, man, woman. Oftentimes when we learn something, it's about unlearning. We have to unlearn a lot of things in order to actually learn. One of the things we have to unlearn is a certain dichotomy that we might have grown up with. This dichotomy of marriage on one pole and celibacy or religious life on the other. What I'm going to propose to you is that one of the keys to happy marriage, happy relationship between husband and wife, is to put these two things together. That celibacy and marriage actually subsist in each other, and they are essential to go together. They're actually two sides of the same coin. Once again, we have to think in the both and that's what this whole sacramental world does. Remember, it's about the invisible and the visible, the spiritual and the physical coming together in meaning. That's what mystery is, and we sort of live in that confluence, that intersection of what is this and that, all at the same time. Not either or. See, that's neurotic. That's part of our problem in our world today, which is why I'm giving this message, why we're going back to school to learn how to see the secret of life. The secret of life is in mystery. Mystery means something revealed, something hidden, all at the same time. God is transcendent and immanent. We saw that a few episodes ago, and we talked about man and woman, how that's revealed in their body. Always think in terms of this and that coming together, coexisting. They're different entities, but they coexist. Think of God. God is visible, and at the same time, he is invisible. He has made himself visible while he is invisible. Think of Jesus Christ. He is God and man, not either or. Think of ourselves. We're body and soul, matter and spirit. Where do the two separate from each other? We can't really say. Different entities, but they go together. So all of life is this way. This is the mystery of life, the word mystery. And certainly it is with man and woman. In this particular case, how to be that by looking at this fusion, this complementarity of celibacy and marriage. First of all, what is celibacy? Celibacy really is just another way, in a sense, to be married. You see, celibacy, religious life, and marriage are actually what we call two capital V vocations. Vocations in the capital V sense. There's only really two. The reason is, and again, this is why they're two sides of the same coin. What that coin is, it's the dying to self, making that total gift of self to something else. In religious life, it's of course to God and the church. And to do that in a way that is permanent and transforms us. It's ontological. That's what we mean by vocation. Well, marriage is that way too. Marriage is that total self-gift of a man and woman to each other that changes them. It's an ontological change. It's something that unites them, even forever, because God is the God of the living, not of the dead. And so when we're united with God, we're united forever, just in a different way in heaven. A famous Byzantine saint, St. John Chrysostom, one of the great fathers of the church, talked about married people being good monks. You're probably thinking, what? Yes, being good monks. What is a monk? A monk is someone who, yes, embraces that charism, that vow of celibacy. But in doing so, what they're doing is simply embracing in a very radical way. And radical means like to the root of things. A radical way, that same baptismal promise that we all take. And that is to die to self and rise to God. Now, the person in religious life who takes the vow of celibacy, what they're really doing is they're making very present on earth what will be in heaven for all of us. In other words, what's number one, and what our ultimate destiny and goal is to be united with Christ in heaven. We'll all be the one bride of the bridegroom Christ in heaven. And that's why marriage as we know it on earth is considered to be just for this earth, temporary, at least in this form. A husband and wife will be united in the next life, but in a different way. Not in an exclusive way, but in an inclusive way. And first and foremost, in their lives, even on earth, and in the end of time, for all eternity in heaven, will be their focus, their love, their connection, their closeness, their intimacy, their union with God. So you see how there's similarities here? The best thing that you can say about a married couple would be this. This would be the crowning glory of their marriage. You know, he would have made a great priest. She would have made a great nun. That means what you're seeing in them is they're living their marriage in a very holy way, meaning that you can see in them, and their love together, even though they're married, you're seeing in them that each one of them ultimately puts God first. That's exactly what celibacy does. That's the witness of celibacy. It's pointing to the eschaton, to what is the ultimate destiny, to what lies ahead. You might remember in the Gospel, Matthew 19, the Jews are coming to Christ. They're asking him this question about divorce. And he's giving an answer about it, and he's pointing then to the life beyond. This is what he says at the end of his answer. He said, some are incapable of marriage because they were born so, some because they were made so by others, some because they have renounced marriage for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Whoever can accept this ought to accept it. And let's go to St. Paul in 1 Corinthians. He's talking to people about advice on marriage and singleness and so on. He says this is in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Now, in regard to virgins, I have no commandment from the Lord, but I give my opinion as one who by the Lord's mercy is trustworthy. So this is what I think best because of the present distress, that it is a good thing for a person to remain as he is. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek a separation. Are you free of a wife? Do not look for a wife. If you marry, however, you do not sin, nor does an unmarried woman sin if she marries. But such people will experience affliction in their earthly life. I would like to spare you that. But he goes on, and basically what he's saying, and what the passage from Matthew 19 is saying, is that celibacy, this witness of celibacy, in a sense has a certain, we'll say, superiority to it, to marriage. In this sense, though, got to be careful. I'll listen carefully. In the sense that heaven is greater than earth. Not that married people are less holy. Married people can be very holy, even more holy than people who are celibate. But the point is that celibacy is a reminder, it's making present on earth through that witness, a religious life, a celibate life, that there is an ultimate destiny. And if we keep our eyes focused on that destiny, we will be happier, better off in this life. And that includes a married couple as well. Monasticism or celibacy, those people who live that religious life, also have to have certain disciplines in their life. Putting Christ first, as we mentioned. Asceticism, that means dying to self in many ways, being disciplined, being very deferential. There's that deferential love we talked about last time. It's a very important key to marital love. Deference. How is a person who's celibate deference? How are they deferential? They are so because in community, many of them live in community, you have to be very deferential to one another. You have to put above yourself the good of the community. So there's a continual dying to self. They do a lot of fasting, a lot of extra praying because they realize that they're dependent upon this prayer. They're dependent upon these things that help us grow in holiness. They know they have to keep focused on God. So it is with a married couple as well. The more they have monastic elements in their life, the happier they are as a married couple. So marriage and celibacy are not diametrically opposed. In fact, the married couple living virtuously, sacramental marriage, is actually a help, an inspiration to the celibate, because they remind the celibate that their witness, their religious life, is to be lived spousally, like a married person, meaning giving of themselves to others. Conversely, the celibate reminds the married couple that you have to put Christ first, always, individually and as a couple. And realize that in the end, for all time, your marriage on earth is a foretaste for what will be in the end for all time. That is that union with Christ, the bridegroom, at the wedding feast of the Lamb. So the two are very mutually supportive of one another. And they have to have elements of one another's lives in their own lives. Give me an example. I am a celibate priest. But the exact same ceremony, exact same piece of the ceremony that ordained me a priest, a celibate priest, is the exact same piece of the ceremony in my church, in the Byzantine Catholic Church, that enters a couple into marriage. In fact, this is what happens. There's a beautiful prayer that's chanted during the time when a priest is being ordained. It's the same one chanted when a couple is being married. And the verse goes like this. O Lord, look down from heaven and see, and visit this vineyard and perfect this vine which your right hand has planted. O holy martyrs, you have suffered courageously. Receive your reward. Pray to the Lord our God to have mercy on our souls. Did you catch that? O holy martyrs, you have suffered courageously. Both the person being ordained to the celibate priesthood, such as myself, and a married couple being united in holy matrimony are both becoming martyrs. Martyrs mean you have to die to yourself to rise to another. In fact, when a couple does this, or when a celibate does this, it enriches their lives. That's what makes a marriage happy. That's what makes the celibate witness spousal. A lot of times in our culture, we look at celibacy, especially when it comes to priestly celibacy, it's just sort of like excess baggage. You know, it's like an archaic rule. Why do they need that in the church? Well, if it's not lived with that spousal witness, spousally, in other words, if a celibate, whether they're a man or a woman, if they're a vowed celibate, if they're not living it as a mother and father, I'm called father, which means I have to be husband and father in some way. It's not just a title. It's a reality about my life. If I'm not living as a father in this mystical way, and as a husband, who's my bride? Well, the church. And that's very real to me. If I'm living that way, then yeah, this whole celibate rule becomes almost like pointless, like excess baggage. It's not just supposed to be something that you deny yourself because you think you're better than everybody else. It's a choice to love spousally. So in other words, even though I'm a celibate priest, I'm a very married man. That's right, you see my honeydew list. Because we have to live it as celibates in the way that married people live their life. Being full of life, being fatherly, realizing that we have a spouse to whom we must die to ourselves and give to that spouse. That's a very real thing. In fact, another part of the service of marriage in the Byzantine church, the wedding ceremony, the priest says some very long, beautiful prayers. There's always long, beautiful prayers in the Eastern churches. And one of the things they say is this: bless this marriage, granting to your servants, the bride and the groom, a peaceful and long life, matrimonial chastity, mutual love in the bond of peace, a long-lived posterity, happiness in their children, and the unfading crown of glory. You catch that one part? Matrimonial chastity. Does that sound strange to you? I thought the church says the married couple is supposed to have children, and consummate their marriage and all that. Why would they say matrimonial chastity? Why would that be part of the prayer? We have to understand what chastity is. You can't put on our sacramental lenses here and really understand what something is. Chastity means the true and honest, virtuous living out of our sexuality in whatever state that is. If you're a single person, you live it in a chaste way. In other words, you don't have sex. If you're a married couple, you keep that expression, that one flesh union, which is a better word for sex. The one flesh union between husband and wife is to be reserved just for marriage, just between a husband and wife. We don't lust after people outside the marriage. We don't have relations with people outside the marriage. We try to be sensitive to each other in that area of their sexuality between husband and wife. That's what we mean by marital chastity, and also the openness to children. So there's a whole spirituality to sexuality, even in marriage. Marriage just isn't anything goes, and celibacy is everything you can't have, and who wants that? No, they both live by the exact same principles. I mentioned that a celibate has to live their celibacy, their religious life, in a spousal way. Well, so too do a married couple, as St. John Chrysostom says, have to live their marital life in some ways in a monastic way. See, the two go together. Two sides of the same coin. I have to live spousally. A couple has to live in a way where they incorporate that monastic witness, that celibate witness in their marriage. I'll give you another little tidbit here you probably didn't know about. I come from a long line of married priests. In many of the Eastern churches, married men can become priests. Now, you have to say that right. Priests don't marry in Eastern churches. Married men become priests. So I come from a long line of married priests in my family lineage on both sides of my family. Now, I'm celibate, and there are celibate priests also in my family as well. But there's a tradition, there's been custom and tradition among the custom of married clergy, where the priest and his wife are asked to abstain from relations during certain times of the year, even during certain times of the week. One of those is prior to the time that the priest would celebrate the Eucharist. Now, why would this be? It's because even where there is marriage, even a married priest, there is still that eschatological element. There's still that reminder that in the end and forever, it's not just about you and me, husband and wife. It's about us and Christ, me and God, you and God, us together and God. This is actually a very Eucharistic theology. That's why Eucharist is the source and summit of our existence. Think about it. In the Eucharist, in the liturgy, the Mass, where we receive the body and blood of God, Christ, we actually become one with Christ, but also one with each other. Those parameters of husband and wife, my family, that family, this family always sits over here in church, that family always sits over there, husband and wife go up to communion together, all that dissolves in the Eucharist. In the Eucharist, we all become the one bride of the bridegroom Christ in the Eucharist. And when a married couple experiences that, as we all do even in the Eucharist, when they can understand and incorporate into their lives, that's incorporated that celibate monastic element. And that is going to really enrich their marriage. Let me show you one more little image here. It's a triangle. Let's say the husband is here, the wife is here. If the husband takes, and God is up here at the top. If the husband moves in the direction of God, who's up here, the wife moves in the direction of God, who is up here. Notice as they go this way towards God, what's going to happen? They're ultimately going to get closer to each other. That's the key. And that's what the monastic celibate witness does for marriage. Conversely, marriage makes sense out of the celibate witness, out of the vow of celibacy for religious life. Marriage and celibacy, they're not diametrically opposed. They're two sides of the same coin. A married couple will find it essential to incorporate the witness in their lives of the monastic celibate witness. Conversely, the celibate, the vow religious, will find it enriching, mandatory really, to incorporate into their celibacy and their religious life that aspect of living spousally, as father, as husband or wife in the Lord. Two sides of the same coin.
To all the viewers of Shalom World, I offer my blessing. The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Shalom World, God's own channel.